Hello, good evening, Elaine Pixel Priest. I'm here with Alex, who you'll see in a minute. I don't know if he's going to say hello, probably in a moment or two. Um, so,
Hello.
so welcome to our live stream on the question of do miracles still happen? So, good evening to Trish and Kathleen and anyone else who's joining us. You don't have to announce yourself if you just want to listen, that's fine. But really hoping that people will announce themselves and sort of join in the conversation so that it's a chat rather than just Alex and I having a chat. It'd be good to have everybody's thoughts and comments. So please do let us know when you're here. So the question then, do miracles still happen? Well, you've probably got your own ideas about that, but I thought it might help us to have a look at some definitions. So I think Alex has got some to put up on the screen for us to have a look at.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, here he is.
Okay.
So, definition one, an extraordinary and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore attributed to a divine agency. So, that's one definition of a miracle. So, let's have a look at number two. I quite like this one. It says it's an unusual and mysterious event that is thought to have been caused by a god because it does not follow the usual laws of nature. So that's another possibility. And a third one that I found was a miracle is a very lucky event that's surprising and unexpected. So I think from a Christian point of view, though, I don't think I'd say that it was a very lucky event. Often miracles are surprising and unexpected, aren't they? But I think either the first or second, because they're quite similar, aren't they? What do you think, Alex, about definition of a miracle? What would you go with?
Right. Okay. I've just made my microphone working. So let's go through those. An extraordinary and welcome event that is not explicable by nature or scientific law and is therefore attributed to a divine agency. Seems good.
Yeah.
An unusual, mysterious event that is thought to have been caused by God because it does not follow the usual laws of nature. Sounds good. And a third one, a very lucky event that is surprising and unexpected. I'd say that sounds good.
Okay. You like all of them then?
It's difficult to put your finger on, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's difficult to put your finger on the concept of what constitutes a miracle.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about the positives, the reflective state, and all that sort of stuff. But I'm sure you're going to get to that kind of thing when you carry on. So I think all of them are plausible. It depends on what vantage point you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's usually, when I think of a miracle, it's always something that's really unexpected, isn't it? That you just couldn't have foreseen. And usually it's like you can't explain it.
Is it always unexpected, or is it hoped for?
Oh, it could be hoped for. Yeah.
So we pray, don't we? We pray for miracles, and miracles happen.
Yeah.
And we say that God had his hand on that. There was something that happened.
Yeah.
And also, I suppose it depends on when you're looking at the event. Is it the event in real time, or is it reflective looking back in the past? Yeah.
Yeah, because it can be, yeah. I mean, and Kathleen says, do you think they definitely do still happen?
I'll tell you what, let me merge that back so everyone see the chat, and I'll just be...
Okie doke. Yeah.
I'll be voice.
In 2010, Trevor Wood went missing on Saddleworth Moor in freezing weather. Police said not to expect him to survive, but I said I'd pray for him, and 17 hours later he was found alive but cold. Wow. Yeah. Well, I think that's a miracle, isn't it? When people it's against expectation, isn't it?
So I assume that situation. I've got to ask a question. What happened? Did he just get lost? Did just caught out by night fog? So now I'm just thinking Saddleworth Moor. Now I'm thinking of like the Hound of the Baskervilles and stuff like that. So
yes,
yeah. Oh well, yeah. 17 hours.
Yeah. Wait for Kathleen to tell us. Oh, we are. Oh, and Trish says, sometimes miracles happen when you least expect them. Yeah, I think that's good. The timing thing's quite an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it can be when you don't expect. It can be something you're really praying for, can't it? And I think it's sometimes you can look back on things, can't you, and realise that a miracle's happened over time. I know that's happened. That's happened to me as well. So
I think that's the main time when I recognise miracles is a reflective. Unless it's one of those. Unless it's one of those things where I'm not sure I'll be back. It's one of those things where you kind of think, I can't believe that bus missed me.
yeah.
Kind of miracle.
Yeah. And Kathleen said complete memory loss going to work.
Really?
Right. Gosh. Wow.
Work can have that impact on you, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no, it's wonderful to have to have a miracle like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, talking about whether these, miracles are these unexpected events or looking over time, I thought it might help just to have a talk briefly about some of the miracles that were in the Bible, because that's when obviously that's where we sort of get miracles from, isn't it? Or ideas about miracles, I suppose, because that's where we saw them first. I mean, there's loads in the Old and the New Testament. In the Old Testament, just a few examples. Like there was Naaman, wasn't there, who was cured of leprosy, and Daniel, who spent the whole night in the lion's den and came out alive. And Moses parted the Red Sea. We're just holding his thing up. So those are quite amazing things to happen, aren't they? Kathleen's just said that he drove there without knowing where he was going. Gosh, that was a really difficult situation. Yeah. But I think that's like a miracle where someone's saved for something, isn't it? Unexpectedly, which is great. So thinking about the New Testament, Jesus, 37 miracles recorded over the four Gospels, but there were loads more. I mean, John's Gospel says he did lots. So, and I think we've. Oh, sorry, I've to interrupt myself here before we talk about those. Tricia said, I remember that day clearly. Didn't have he say a voice told him to go. So, yeah, that must be one of those sort of difficult situations, isn't it? When you go into a dangerous situation like that. Yeah. So, the ones in John in particular focused on 7 miracles that Jesus did. So I don't know how these might compare with the sort of things that are in our heads, I suppose, about miracles. The one we all know about, of course, the very first one, turning water into wine at Cana.
That would have definitely made him popular.
Yes, yeah, definitely would have made him popular. And then there's healing of the official's son in Capernaum. And a third one, healing an invalid at the pool at Bethsaida in Jerusalem. So a lot of these are healing miracles, aren't they? And there's the feeding miracles, of course, feeding the 5,000, we're a very famous one. Another one's walking on water in the Sea of Galilee, which is an incredible thing, isn't it? And then healing a blind man in Jerusalem. And, of course, raising the dead Lazarus, which was an incredible miracle as well in Bethany. So, I think those miracles, what struck me about the miracles, I think, that we see in the New Testament, Jesus' miracles like that, if you like, is the ones that are recorded, of course, are sort of instant miracles, because I suppose it would have been more difficult to record one over time, wouldn't it? We're talking about, oh, hi, Shirley. Shirley's here. Good to see you. We're just talking, Shirley, about Jesus' miracles and how the ones in the Bible are all recorded, aren't they? But we've been talking about how miracles can happen over time as well. So why did Jesus perform miracles anyway? I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that. What do you think, Alex? Go on. You must have an idea.
See, that's an interesting point, isn't it? To boost his popularity.
To boost his popularity.
Yeah, especially the wine. That's going to go down really well with everyone, isn't it? It's not going to be life and soul of the party.
Yeah.
I don't know. The reality, why did he perform miracles? I suppose it's interesting because some of the miracles he performed, he actually asked that nobody say anything about them. It was a timing issue, and I think also it's to do with the fact that I think he was bringing glory to God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was showing who he was, I suppose. Really. Oh, Robert's here as well. Good evening, Robert.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, hi. So, yeah, I think and to glorify God, definitely. I think John said, I've got a quote from John's Gospel, chapter 2, when he done that first miracle, Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed him. So it's sort of to show his glory, to show, and also so that people would believe him, because it's hard to argue sometimes, isn't it, with something that you see like that. Now, Trish has asked an interesting question. What do you think the evangelical people who claim to cure people? Ah, that's an interesting question. A very good one. I do believe that people can be cured. I do believe healing still happens. It doesn't happen very often, but I do believe I've heard.
Doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Well, I don't know. They're not publicised.
Well, I don't know. I think this is the point with miracles, is that we often look at miracles as something that's big and pizzazz.
Yeah.
It's like, give me an example of a miracle. Oh, walking on water, raising Lazarus. These are miracles. These are phenomenal miracles. And even when you think about it in biblical times, he didn't do hundreds and hundreds of them.
Yeah.
There's a smattering of these, and I think there's a point to that. But if we look at miracles in perhaps a more subtle way, with the subtlety of healing, I think in some instances, then, like I say, it depends on how you look at it. If you're always looking at miracles as being something that's big and, road to Damascus type miracle in its explosive sense, do you know what I mean? It's I think that you're gonna not find as many as you might think. But when we talk about, the reason I'm saying that, and I'll explain this, but when I look at things that happen in a reflective way rather than in real time, to suggest that was a sequence of miracles, or it's a sequence of events that could constitute a miracle, that something happened that was quite incredible as a result of. Do you see what I mean? So that's not to suggest that all coincidences are miracles, by the way, but certain things happen and you kind of think, do you know what, I just can't put my thumb on that. That really does feel like it's divine. Yeah,
I mean, go back to the sort of the healing in particular, and I know I've read of examples of people who have been healed miraculously, and there's a retired vicar I know who has told me a few times a story of that she suddenly felt compelled to pray for somebody she knew was in hospital, and there was something very wrong with his throat, and they couldn't solve it. It was looking really, really bad, and she just had this. She was one evening. She had this really strong sense that she needed to pray for this, and she had a picture in her mind of this throat being open and healed, and the next day, that was the news, that the doctors couldn't understand it, and it was at the time that she prayed that it had happened. So that's one example that's somebody has genuinely told me, and those are sort of the more dramatic ones, aren't they? I mean, sorry, just as an aside, Robert said that miracles were signs that God's kingdom was breaking into our present age. Yeah, I think in the Bible, it was a sign, that God was here and his kingdom, his way of life was breaking in.
But that's the question: do they still exist now?
Well, I believe they do, but I suppose, but I know there's not everybody does, and people are often sceptical, including sort of healing miracles. And again, it sort of goes back to our sort of definition of a miracle. Complete healing miracles, I think, are probably fairly rare, aren't they? I know there's sometimes people have things that are inexplicably suddenly better from something, or I had an example in my preach on Sunday of somebody like that who's made not a complete recovery, but the doctors can't explain how she's coped with her illness so well. And she's a tremendously faithful praying lady, but again, they don't always happen, do they? So I'm not saying it's just because she's prayed about it, but they do They do. They do. Those things I believe still happen. I don't know what anybody else thinks in chat, whether they really believe that they do. Kate's already said she thinks they do, but there's when I was reading about this, there are categories of people in terms of what they think about miracles. So there's cessationists, which is a good word, isn't it? Alex has got to put that up, I think. So if you're a cessationist, you believe that the kinds of miracles that we see in the New Testament don't continue to happen today because they were a special manifestation of God's power that ceased to exist after the generation of apostles passed away. Okay, so that's one viewpoint, that they just don't happen any longer. And the opposite to that is the continuationists, who believe that all the kinds of miracles we see in the New Testament continue to happen in the world today with the same frequency and intensity. So I don't know if anybody in the chat believes either of those, but there is a halfway house for both of those. You could be a semi-cessationist, so you believe that only some New Testament type miracles continue to happen, and not to the same degree as in the New Testament. God is free to work supernaturally today, but the frequency and intensity is diminished in the modern era. So that's an interesting viewpoint, isn't it? And or you could be a semi-continuationist, which is you believe all kinds of miracles seen in the New Testament continue to happen today. Like the semi-cessationists, you believe that the frequency and intensity of God's supernatural work has diminished. But semi-continuationists are much more open to describing events as miraculous, supernatural works of God. So maybe you're somewhere on one of those. But there's one more, just before we go back to chat, there is one more category, which is more of a non-believing category, which I'm very aware of as well. A theologian called Rudolf Bultmann, who lived, he died in 1976, and he said, and I quote, "It is impossible to use electric light and the wireless and to avail ourselves of modern medical and surgical discoveries and at the same time to believe in the New Testament world of spirits and miracles." And I know there's quite a few people who have said, somebody said to me recently, they're a scientist, and they don't believe that those sort of miracles can happen. So there's lots of different viewpoints around, really. And so I suppose it's, well, what do we believe? I mean, Shirley said that she's heard of healings and diseases and lumps, etc., disappearing. Yeah, I think that's what I've heard as well. Certainly individual cases where these inexplicable things have happened. When people have prayed. So I think I'm sort of quite open to that, to saying. And the other thing about it is, I suppose it's down to partly our faith as well, because if we believe that Jesus did miracles and that he rose from the dead, which is an incredible thing, isn't it? That in itself is one of God's miracles. Then. And if we believe that God remains the same and that Jesus is the same today, as it says in the Bible, and forever, then, it sort of follows in my head that miracles do still happen as well. Oh, and just an aside, Hillary's here. She's got a few minutes to pop in. Hi, Hillary. And Trevor's just got home. Hi, Trevor. It's lovely to have you with us. We're in the middle of talking about what we believe about miracles. In other words, do we think they don't happen anymore? Do we think they happen but not nearly as much? Do we believe only certain types of miracles still happen? There's a lot. Or do we just believe that because we know so much more now about science and medicine that actually really they can all be explained or they don't really happen? So we're just sort of thinking about what everybody's experience is and what they believe about that. What do you think, Alex?
I was going to ask you that. Which out of those four do you think you are then?
Me? What am I? Yes. That's a good question. Let's put them back up. Good question.
So let's go back. That. So believe the kinds of miracles we see in the New Testament
Do not happen. So they don't happen. Are you one of these people that just says, well, no, I just don't believe they happen anymore, and that's
Right.
it?
Okay.
They finished, because the apostles did. Just while we're on that one, can I just say, because I think it's fascinating,
Yeah.
that in the Bible, of course, when Jesus had died and they carried on, the apostles performed lots of miracles, and there's just a couple of Bible verses I want to put up on this because I just think they're fascinating. In Acts 5, this is about Peter. Yeah. So it says they even carried out the sick into the streets and laid them on cots and mats in order that Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he came by. A great number of people would also gather from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing the sick and those tormented by unclean spirits, and they were all cured. So that idea of just his shadow falling on them. And there's one other which is about Paul, again in Acts 19, that God did extraordinary miracles through Paul, so that when the handkerchiefs or aprons that had touched his skin were brought to the sick, their diseases left them, and the evil spirits came out of them. So I just think that's interesting for me, because it's just thinking about this, because for these definitions we've got, because you can believe that there are no miracles any longer, but that whole, or you can believe that they all still happen, or perhaps you believe that those sorts of miracles are perhaps that, where people are touching handkerchiefs and aprons and falling under somebody's shadow, perhaps you believe that those can't happen. I'm just thinking about that, but perhaps you do believe that other sorts of miracles do still happen. It's a bit more complicated, I'm saying, I suppose, than just do they happen or don't they. You might believe that certain types of miracles do and others don't. Kathleen and Trevor are both definitely continuationists. Good for you. And Shirley said that the late Leslie Roberts, who was a lovely lady, part of St Luke's Church, gave me a cotton hanky she had blessed. Yeah, lovely. I don't know. What do you think, Alex? Or I don't mind saying, but everyone's listening to me talking too much anyway. Well, go on, you tell us what you think.
I think it's amazing to have a blessed hanky.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to know what you do with it. Is that something that you cherish that? Is that something you hold on to at certain times or something? I'm just interested to know. I think there's kind of two here, isn't it? It's kind of sensationist or continuationists.
Yeah, or somewhere slightly in between, as I said.
So, do you believe that the stuff that happened in the New Testament still happens or it doesn't? And is it? Continuationists believe all kinds of miracles we've seen in the New Testament continue to happen today.
The same frequency and intensity.
Well, maybe I'm a semi-continuationist.
Yeah.
Because I think there was purpose for the way that they were done.
Yes.
And they were very kind of, if you like, quite vocal or in your face to be like without a shadow of a doubt, this is something that is very much a miracle. Whereas I think today we see miracles in a more subtle way. Yeah. It goes back to the idea of what I was saying before about am I coming in a bit hot? I think my audio just bring me down a bit. The kind of things where something really dramatic happens. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a more subtle view of what is going on. How God works in our lives. See, I posed an interesting thing. Hang on. The hanky was for me to hold and believe. Sorry, it has spent most of its life in a drawer, but one day I may need to trust it. Maybe that's one of those things, isn't it? Where you have that time when you think I need to hold on to that blessing that Leslie did. So that's really good. That's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know. Trevor might know this. I was thinking about a film called Sliding Doors. I don't know if anyone else has watched it.
Oh.
I'll just finish this. We'll come to Hillary's comment because the premise for the film is that Gwyneth Paltrow is playing the leading lady role, and what happens is that the film skews into two different scenarios, and it's based on whether she managed to get a train or whether she missed the train. And I was thinking about miracles in a sense. Do things happen in a negative way, or a perceived negative at the time, which further down the line, if you will, come out with a much better and greater outcome? So in the instance where she catches the train, she goes to work and everything's kind of fine, and and in the instance when she misses the train, she goes home and finds out her husband's having an affair. So it's kind of like, and everything, a world comes crashing down because she missed the train. And it's a good way that they portray this story, is that she missed the train, all negative things happen. But actually, when it comes to the final outcome of both of these kind of paths that happened for her, the one where she missed the train was the one that was the best. She met the love of her life, that kind of thing. And it's one of those British films, British stories, and it was great. And I thought, actually, that's an interesting point, because it was a miracle that I missed that specific thing. I gave an example to Elaine where I kind of considered you were late for an interview and didn't get the job, and you think that's not a miracle, but maybe it was. Maybe it was that actually, if you'd have got that job, it might have been the worst thing ever. And I don't know if it's, maybe I've got I
don't know if that's a miracle, though. I think that's what I'd say. If we're describing miracles as things that can't be explained by natural laws, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You're talking about events that have unexpected consequences.
But then I think of the word miraculous.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm thinking, and maybe I'm certainly not doing it intentionally. Maybe I'm making the concept of a miracle being frivolous, but I don't know if I am. Sometimes unexplained things happen, and they happen, they happen for what I perceive to be a very justifiable reason. And the only time you find that out is in the future, when you look back and think, actually, if I'd have done this. So is it just like, is that part of things being influenced, things being changed? Now, if it's somebody's health that's being influenced or someone's health that's being changed, because of course you have people that are potentially unwell, and they kind of seem to get better, and it's kind of miraculous. And there's people that are unwell and they don't get any better, and unfortunately they pass over. But for me, it's kind of like, hang on, how do you define that? What's this stance, this vantage point you look at when you look at events that happen?
It's when you can't, because as well, I'm going to come to Hilly's comment in a minute, but I just wanted to say, because it isn't just about healing, isn't it? I know in my life it can be healing in a relationship, can't it? It doesn't have. It's not necessarily about illness. I know one of my experiences that I believe, I know to be true, is of God. This is years later, looking back at a healing in my previous marriage of relationship that I honestly couldn't explain. But it was like there was a 2-year gap between me thinking that there was something that couldn't be healed, and then 2 years later, realising it had been amazingly. I'm thinking, I wonder how that's happened. But it wasn't until some years after that, when I was praying and God was going through things with me, that I got a clear sense He was saying, I worked that miracle. I believe God works miracles, not just in our health, if you like, but also in our relationships, isn't it? So Hillary's got to go. Oh no, and we haven't said. Sorry, Hilary, very quickly, just in case Hilary said her son was miraculously cured of child epilepsy at age 6. He'd been diagnosed as severe aggressive epilepsy, which wouldn't improve. 2 years after the diagnosis, 10 medications later, tonic clinic seizures changing to 40 drop attacks, frozen moments. A group of friends praying and fasting for a miracle saw it occur when, on a change of drug but not at a clinical dose, all attacks stopped and have never returned. That's fantastic. And then she said, going from requiring one-to-one educational support, he left year 2 no longer with seizures, and this year was awarded a first-class honours degree, and his consultant's registrar said we should rejoice on his first visit back to clinic. We have. That's amazing, isn't it? That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Hilary. I don't know if you're still with us, but thank you so much for sharing that. And, that is an example of a miracle, isn't it? That's something that's defying, expectation. People praying for it.
And the other flip side, thanks Hilary. The other flip side, and I think I understand what you were just saying about in your your first marriage. I'm kind of thinking about certain situations that, however bad they might appear, they might actually in some way be the making of a relationship. So, for example, I think in some respects the COVID pandemic has brought out incredible things in people. Yeah, and people have had, I don't, again, maybe I don't know what the word would be, but miraculous things are happening in people.
Yeah.
Is it attitudes? Is it, all of these things? Again, it's a vantage point. I look at what people have done. Is it miraculous the way in which our NHS has pulled together and done the things that they've done over the last 15 months? Is it short of a miracle? How do we look at it? If we keep looking at miracles in a sense of, like she's sleeping, get up, and the dead girl gets up, then it's I think that's that going back to the cessationists, that would be what that would be. And the continuationists believe, I think, that the concepts of the stuff that happened in the New Testament is still happening now.
Yeah.
I think my viewpoint is very much subtle, and I see miraculous things around me, which maybe other people wouldn't say were miracles.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to sort of definitions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Trish has said, in my early teens, I took my mother, who was blind, to see Billy Graham in Nottingham. When he met her, he asked me to stand aside. He put his hand on her head and jumped back and said, "Madam, you have a greater power than I. Your sight will not be restored, but you will be blessed with other things." Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? So just sort of knowing that was going to happen. And also knowing that the miracle of restoring her sight wasn't going to happen is interesting as well, isn't it? Yeah.
To be honest, Trish, that kind of, I get that completely. I really do. Is that in one breath being told that the thing you probably most desire isn't going to happen? Well, that doesn't sound too miraculous, does it? But something else is going to happen, and that is miraculous. Again, it depends on how we look at these things. I mean, I was just thinking, because Trish mentioned about Billy Graham, is these other kind of evangelicals who are, praying really loudly and, bashing people on the head and they fall to the floor, and trying to get people in wheelchairs stand up and walk. I find a lot of that stuff quite shocking when we're talking about healing, and a lot of it's untruth and false, and people trying to scam people and stuff on the basis of miracles. It's open to that abuse, isn't it?
I'm sure that can happen. Yeah. But I do believe that that does happen. If you look at I mean, there are places that have healing services, aren't there? And there are places where that particularly, I know, thinking of Foldy Brennan, the retreat house we've been to once in Wales, they have healing services. And if you look at their blog, there are, on a fairly regular basis, reports of people witnessing that they've been there and have been healed of something. So it does happen. But yes, I mean, people can abuse it as well, can't they? I suppose it's like everything. Yeah, Trish says very true, Alex. Yeah, I
think Trish is probably that. I don't think that's response to that. I think it's response to the first point she's made, that we can look. Again, it's about how we look at things. Yeah. I think for me it is, if we look at it to be, a miracle is a positive outcome. I mean, it goes back to that definition, isn't it? That definition 3, which is a very lucky event that is surprising and unexpected. But it could be a very unlucky event that is surprising and unexpected, but the outcome is phenomenal.
But I suppose I think about number 3, that doesn't sound like, from a faith point of view, that's all.
Well, only because it's got the word lucky in it, I suppose. You kind of think that it's not, whether you believe in luck or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think that it does depend on how you look at it. And I think it's better for the soul, is that if you look back and think of things and think, that is a really big thing. And it is a big thing. And I think in some people's minds, it's not that big. And actually, I think, no, it's a good way to look, actually. It's a bit more fulfilling.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of what this is about as well is should we therefore, if we believe that there are still miracles, then it's something we should still be praying for, isn't it? Because I think often we don't. So I'm including myself in it, isn't it? Sometimes our vision isn't big enough sometimes, or perhaps we just get disillusioned and think, oh well, that's just never going to happen. But if we're saying that they can happen, like Hillary's example, which is fantastic, but of course it doesn't always happen, and we know that. We know that people can pray and fast. I said this a little bit in my preach as well, and that's in the Bible too. That they don't always happen. King David prayed and fasted, and the child he had with Bathsheba still died. We know that terrible things happen when people are desperately praying for it, but I don't think that should stop us from praying for it. That's just my view, really, because I think we do know that it can still happen.
I'm thinking of I'm thinking of those situations, and I don't know if other people can relate to this. This is quite a difficult one, really. Is that often when somebody says such and such is sick, or they're not very well, can we pray for healing? And I hear different clergy and different people making what I considered measured prayer, really measured prayer, where it's very simplistic to say, and we just pray, put them in your hands, heal them in the name of the mighty Jesus. And some people say, we bring this person, we put them in your hands to hold and comfort them. And maybe in some regard we sort of think that this is their time. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose the question is, do we always pray for healing? Do we just pray for God to be with them? Because the interesting concept is when you talk about King David, and although he prayed and the girl didn't survive, it's only the sorry?
I think it was a boy. But
sorry.
It doesn't matter.
I thought you said little girl. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a baby, a child. Yeah.
Okay, child. Didn't survive. It depends on what happens next. If your viewpoint is narrowed and it only thinks of here on earth, you think, oh, it's dreadful. All the prayers didn't happen. It didn't work. But if the baby's with God, then ultimately the best thing happened in some respects. So it depends on how we look at it and how much we lean on our faith and understanding of that. So often, but going back to the other point is that I know people that have said, it's their time, and you've asked God to come and take them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, no, that's right. You do, yeah.
And it seems. Yes, I'm always a bit worried about saying comments like that on stream, because you're never sure who's listening and what they might be going through.
No,
but there is a reality check there that sometimes people do that, and we hold it up to God and say, we put such and such in your hands, Lord. It's your will, and ultimately it is God's will anyway. So we kind of look at it in a real rational way and less emotional, which is interesting. And I think that that's an interesting part of prayer. I mean, we've kind of gone a bit off piste really with on the conceptual idea of miracles, but just to do with prayer. But.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I don't know those who've said what they think. I think most people are thinking that that we do still have miracles. Shirley says, ask about my mum when I see you. Too much for here. Because sometimes, Shirley will do. Sometimes these miracle stories are long and involved, aren't they? Yeah. So you sort of you need a big time to explain things. Yeah, and how they've happened.
See, interestingly, if I consider myself when I became a Christian, however that happened, I submitted myself to God. Jesus came and saved me. I found faith. All these instances in which people go, oh, you can't say that, it worked the other way. But when I became a Christian, that was a blimmin' miracle. I'll tell you that for
it was
absolutely because and I wonder what that was like for anybody else who became a Christian, if they consider that in their own world a miracle, because they would never have thought that they'd become a Christian before. I was probably at probably more atheist than agnostic before I became a Christian. And if you think of that stance, you think, well, blimey heck, that is a miracle, isn't it? If I had that kind of perception. And it wasn't just about conversation. It was well, it was an incredibly spiritual filled feeling as well, which made the difference. But I'm thankful for that miracle.
Yeah, because God worked it. That happens with most people, isn't it? You can sort of try to believe even. I don't know. You want to talk about your story, Alex. I know you spent a lot of time asking questions, and as only you can do. But asking lots of questions, and but
asking lots of hang on. You mean lots and lots and lots of questions?
And people trying desperately to persuade you to believe. But of course, it's God who did that. So
I remember going to an event, and there was it was somebody's house. There was a fairly long kitchen table, which you probably get about 8 people round, and there was me at one end, and there was 6 Christians at the other. It was like that. It was me versus them. It was kind of interesting. But I was full of lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. Oh, I'm an analyst. That's what I used to be, and I suppose I still have an analytical mind. So I always ask lots of questions, which strangely enough, most people, even in Christian world, absolutely say you should do anyway. So but it's good. Yeah. It wasn't just. I'll save my story for when it's testimony time and stuff, but I think that for me it was part of searching and inquiring that as a possibility. But then, it was kind of like the effect of that transformation, that kind of thing that happened. I think we might have mentioned this before, but it was so powerful. You knew for a fact that wasn't just seems like it's the right thing. No, this has definitely happened to me. I can't argue the sensation and feeling I had. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting with people's experience. I don't know about chat, but hang on, Helu's back again. I'll just have a look at that first. Back again for a moment.
Let's make sure we get her, because I don't know how long she's here for.
I agree. Yeah, she says, I agree. We are asked to pray, trust and believe and have faith. And we each have examples of when someone is not healed, as we ask. Yeah, absolutely. We're not asked to understand God answers to our prayers if it's the opposite of our heart's desire. Yeah. That's a really good point, isn't it, Hilary? We sort of touched on the fact that, for every example we can cite of these wonderful answers to prayer, there's a lot more that that we can't understand. And Trish says if you don't ask questions, you never learn. And that's going back to what we were saying about you, Alex. I think, you need to ask questions. And I think it's okay to ask.
I just think the point was I was relentless and never stopped asking questions.
Yeah, I think it's but I think it's okay to ask God. I mean, like Henry says, it can be so awful, isn't it, when you're praying and healings don't happen, these miracles don't come, and of course we don't understand. And we don't know. We just have to trust in God's plans and the goodness of God because of what we know about Him. We won't know us until we see Him face to face. But and it just reminded me. I had in store this verse from Hebrews. I'm sure you're familiar with Hebrews 11, chapter 1. Have you got it, Alex?
Hang on a sec.
Which helps me in some of these times. And faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see.
You might have to explain that.
I suppose, having put it up and thinking, but I do, I think it's just that I think it's, for me, that helps me to know that I hope in God and trust in God. And also certain that we will know eventually what the truth of all these things, why things didn't happen when we do see Jesus. So it just helps me to hold on to faith, really, and know, and that it's okay to say we don't know and we don't understand, but that we have to trust. I think it just helps me to focus on that, really. I don't know if anyone else has got things that help them in those situations. But just about holding on and knowing that, like I said, eventually we will know, we will see things clearly, but we don't at the moment. But I think what's important for me is knowing that, having faith that miracles do happen, and therefore, yeah, it's definitely worth praying and asking for them, and having that expectation and keeping believing. I think one of the things when I was talking on Sunday about, I don't know, for those of you who may have been in a church where they're preaching on it, it was the healing of Jairus's daughter. And when it got to the point where Jesus had got to Jairus's house, and there was a whole crowd of people weeping and wailing and saying, "This child's died. Why are you bothering him anymore? Your daughter's dead." And Jesus just said, "Just believe, just believe." And that was it. So it was just that encouragement to keep believing, even when all the evidence around is saying something different.
What's the bit in the Bible? I'm just scratching my head here, but then I'm just a vicar's wife, so I'm not supposed to know it all. What's the bit in the Bible where it talks about, because of course people in that what you're talking about there with the sermon, the scripture there from Sunday, is the fact that people were just said you just need to believe, and then the next thing they see is this child get up.
Yeah.
Right. So it's evidential. All right. There's a bit in the Bible about the people who don't get to see these miracles and still believe. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, yes. Does somebody else know? Is it blessed are those who have seen? Jesus says it, doesn't he? You've seen, but blessed are those who haven't seen and still believe.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is in the Bible. Rob will probably know. But yeah, there is a verse in there. You're right about being blessed because we haven't seen Jesus, have we? So those people in the New Testament we're talking about had him there with them, and of course we don't have him in the physical presence of him, although he is with us. Do you know what I mean? But so I think that's probably the point of that. Shirley says, "I need a miracle to happen." Shirley needs a miracle. We'll pray for a miracle for Shirley.
Yeah.
She's not going to tell us what it is.
You might have to give me a clue as to what to pray for. You don't have to do it on this medium. You can message us some other way and just let us know what you need prayer for. But I know some people may or may not know Shirley. Shirley's one of our. Well, actually, she basically co-runs the prayer group that we do on a Tuesday night, which is an incredible thing. I have to say, which is a Zoom-based prayer thing we do, and it's fantastic. I love it. But yeah, Shirley's and Shirley does loads of other great stuff as well around Wallasey as well. So is she sending you a message?
No, I'm just looking that Bible verse up that you said. It's John 20:29. Hang on, trying to find it. Yeah, I'm trying to find the right version. Where are we?
So yeah,
here they are. Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you've seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Yeah, so that's just about faith in Jesus, isn't it?
So I'm just thinking about that line actually, and thinking, is it because you've seen me, or is it for us that we've seen evidence of Jesus in our lives? We've seen something. That's quite an interesting one. Yeah. So anyway, Shell, send us a note. I was going to say it was
in John.
John, but aren't looking. See, Shirley knew. See, do you know the thing is, it's the lag in Facebook.
Yeah.
If we didn't have the lag in Facebook, then you'd have been able to jump in there and looked really good.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's good. So.
So anything else?
Anything else?
We've got about 5 minutes left. If anything else, has anyone else got any other comments they want to fire up?
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody's. I don't know if it's sort of raised anything. What I was hoping, because, we talked about miracles, and I think probably, and people have voiced miracles that they've experienced, and and it sort of links to my view on testimony, isn't it? Because often. It's a bit like Jesus saying, you've seen and you believe. I think what helps people to believe is to hear other people's genuine, when I say, yeah, but I know this person, I know that Hillary's son was healed. And, if you know and you've actually either experienced it yourself or it's somebody close to you, then it helps, doesn't it? It has an impact, and I think that's why testimony is so powerful, isn't it? When you can talk to people, when you can actually hear genuine things that have happened in people's lives. You've seen Jesus working in people's lives, because that's really what testimony's about, isn't it?
So this is almost linked to me coming to faith, saying that was miraculous. So I suppose in testimony again, testimonies don't always have to be about. Well, they're not about coming to faith necessarily.
Not necessarily. No.
They're just talking about things that have been amazing in people's life and how people have stayed close to Jesus. Now that's worked out.
Yes, yeah. It's like witnessing to how Jesus has worked. That's what it is, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Shirley says the miracle she needs is knowing Scripture better.
Isn't just knowing Scripture better.
Oh, isn't just knowing Scripture better. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
I'd guess that, Shirl. Don't worry. Just drop us a hint, and we'll be praying for that.
Yeah. So, because what I was hoping to do, one or two people I know have already said they're happy to share their testimony. Perhaps on one of these evenings, we could have a chat, including Alex.
And I've been told I'm going to be happy to share my testimony as well.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. So next week we're going to have probably start on that. So some people have already said they're happy to do that. If there's anybody else who would consider it and be happy to sit in the Alex window for a while, or pre-record. I'm not sure, Alex, what would be the best way of doing. But
we'll look at it on each individual case. I think the thing, I'm very keen to bring people in live, because then that means that we can talk to them, and chat can talk to them as well. I think it's better. Pre-recorded stuff is all a bit too pre-recorded for my liking, and we have the technology to bring people in live, and if they're willing to share, we're more than willing to listen.
Hillary's just put up her great quote here. So we believe in a supernatural.
Let's switch this across.
Let's put it on so everybody can read it. Yeah. We believe in a supernatural, almighty, sovereign God who acts outside of time, who created all we see on earth. Testimony of the blind man, giving glory to God. John 9, verse 3. Yeah. That's great, isn't it? We do.
Is it me, or is it that Hillary doesn't say a lot, but when she does...
It's great stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, Hillary. Yeah,
that's great, Hillary.
No, and we do have an amazing God, and even looking at creation is a miracle in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I just think I've been, obviously, because of this coming up and thinking a lot, even just... And it's not just, but every baby that's born's a miracle, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? When you watch, how that creation, how on earth that happened, it is amazing. It's just a miracle of God, isn't it? There's so many things. A miracle of life.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I must admit, when I hear of babies being born, I always kind of get this overwhelming sense that's just incredible. I don't have this gooey kind of thing that most women do, but I just always think I kind of sense the awe of what's happened. Certainly the awe of what's happened, so that's really quite powerful.
Yeah. Shirley says, Alex, you need to meet Hillary.
I'd love to meet Hillary.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet Hillary.
Yeah. It's funny when you see people online so often, you tend to think you've already met them, but you haven't. I've met Hillary, actually, but you haven't.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
well, but, okay, I suppose, so for us, Pixel Priest, we're on Facebook. You can message us if anyone has a desire. And to be honest, if you want to just talk and say, do you know what, I'd really love if you talk about this. Or if we have a chat about that.
Yeah.
Or what do you think about this? Anything you like.
Yes.
So we're, as Elaine's kind of starting to build up the streaming, I think we've got a plan, haven't we? So just a heads up, I've kind of gone back to work full time, so that is kind of thrown a bit of a spanner into my availability. Assuming I'm working normal hours, and I do driving, so I know I've got a big chunk of work coming up, which could overspill into an evening. But I think the plan is it right, Elaine, that we're going to try and do a stream once a week?
Yes, on a Wednesday.
On a Wednesday night, 7 till 8.
Yeah,
we're going to try and do that. And anything that topics or anything like that people would like to talk about, then that'd be great.
Yeah, just let us know. As I say, you're following the testimony route, because I know that people have said they would like to, and yeah, I think that'd be really good, because I do think that's powerful. But if there's any other topics or themes that people would like us to chat about together, then yeah, just let us know.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get some other people in that isn't just me. Yeah, be great to get some other people on that are guests as well, to share these conversations. Perhaps some other clergy. It's endless, isn't it? What kind of content we can create.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's great. So and it's great that everyone's here.
Yes.
So
Yes. So yes, thank you everyone for coming, and thanks for your comments. It's it's great to be able to have that conversation with you. So thanks everyone for joining in so well, and us being able to have a proper discussion.
Yeah. So what's the conclusion then?
Well, maybe we don't all agree.
Well, that's true. We know that. But what's the conclusion? Well, I think the conclusion in this studio is miracles still happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I get the sense that on chat they kind of agree.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right, so see everyone next week then, I suppose, is it?
Okay, God bless everyone. Yeah. We'll see you next week, if not before.